When you're sitting at a desk with a stack of loose reports, manuscripts, or a half-finished thesis, the question that pops up is simple: do I really need a binding machine, or am I just adding another piece of equipment that will sit idle? I've spent a few weeks watching small office owners, freelance designers, and even a couple of university labs struggle with the same dilemma, and I've talked to a handful of people who finally decided to pull the trigger on an all-in-one electric coil binding system. If you're on the fence about whether a machine like the Akiles CoilMac-EX Plus is worth the space on your workbench, the link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'll break down what you actually get when you press start, where the machine shines, and where the trade-offs might leave you feeling shortchanged. First, let's talk about the kind of work this machine is built for. Coil binding, sometimes called spiral, is popular because the finished product can lie flat, flip back on itself, and still look professional. That makes it a go-to for everything from presentation handouts to cookbooks and portfolios. The Akiles CoilMac-EX Plus is marketed as an all-in-one solution. It punches holes, inserts the coil, and even includes a set of accessories like a cutter, a coil feeder, and a reverse, anti-jam, function. The all-metal claim isn't just a buzzword. The chassis is entirely steel, which means the machine won't wobble once you start punching a 13.5-inch sheet of heavy cardstock. For a small office or a home studio that wants a single piece of equipment that can handle both thin paper and thicker covers, that durability is a real benefit. Now, who actually benefits from this kind of machine? If you're a freelance graphic designer who regularly assembles client-proof copies, a teacher putting together course packets, or a small business that needs to produce branded manuals in-house, the CoilMac-EX Plus saves you the time and expense of outsourcing those jobs. The fact that the coil inserter is full-length and heavy-duty means you can feed a whole roll of 3mm plastic coil without stopping to rethread every few pages. That continuous feed can shave minutes off a job that would otherwise involve manual coil insertion, which adds up when you're binding dozens of booklets a week. On the other side of the coin, if your binding needs are infrequent, maybe you only need a few copies a year for a personal project, this machine might feel like overkill. The 13.5-inch punch length is generous, but it also dictates the maximum page size you can work with. If you're accustomed to binding larger formats like A3 or want to experiment with very thick covers, you'll quickly discover you're limited. Moreover, the machine's footprint is roughly the size of a small desktop printer, which means you need a dedicated spot on your bench. For a cramped home office, that could be a deal-breaker. Let's get into the day-to-day experience. The first thing you notice when you power the CoilMac-EX Plus on is the quiet hum of the motor. Unlike some lower-priced coil binders that screech and vibrate, this unit runs smooth enough that you can hear the click of the coil feeding through the paper. The single punching length, 13.5 inches, covers the majority of standard US letter and legal sizes, and the metal die is sturdy enough to handle 200-gram cardstock without jamming. The reverse function is a thoughtful addition. If the coil ever gets stuck, a common frustration with budget models, the machine can run backward to free it without you having to pull the coil by hand. In my testing, that reverse cycle took about 2 seconds and cleared what could have otherwise become a messy jam. One practical strength that often gets lost in marketing blurbs is the way the accessories are packaged. The included cutter, for instance, has a built-in ruler and a simple lever that lets you trim excess coil in a single motion. In real-world scenarios, you rarely need a separate cutting tool. The cutter's integration means you can finish a book without moving it to another workstation. The coil feeder, too, is designed to sit on top of the machine and hold a roll of 3mm coil securely. I found that the feeder's design reduces the need to constantly adjust tension, which is something I've seen cause misalignments in other models. However, there are a few practical weaknesses that you'll bump into if you push the machine to its limits. First, the punching mechanism, while solid, can only accommodate a single hole width per pass. If you need to bind a document that requires a custom hole spacing, say, a larger pitch for a thicker coil, you'll have to manually adjust the paper or resort to a different machine. The coil inserter's full-length claim is accurate, but the feed rollers can struggle with very slick, coated paper. In a recent trial with glossy photo paper, the rollers slipped, producing a slight misalignment that required rerunning the sheet. If your work regularly involves glossy or laminate finished pages, you might need to add a small amount of friction, like